Jim, thank you for coming back on again. Since our second episode, how have you been?
Well, it's good. It's good. Well, we're making changes, progressing things. A lot of changes in IT. Working on my book. That's what I was doing this morning. Yeah.
Yep. And that's the reason why we're here today. I was talking to Joel and I said, hey, you've got these two books coming out, Know Over Success and Birthright.
Yep.
And I'm really interested to ask you, there's that quote where it's no other success can make up for failure in the home.
Yeah.
Can you explain that for people that haven't heard it before?
Basically, people are driven by the desire for material success, career success. And to the extent that they can put off having a family, avoid having kids altogether, or spend too little time with their children. Now, in my view, that's a failure. If you haven't got the time to be a successful husband, wife, parent, then I think you've failed in something really fundamental in life. Look, just as an example, let's just say I had two kids and one of them was phenomenally successful, entrepreneur, great, whatever, made a lot of money, but they never had any children or they had no time for their children. Their children turned out to be no good. And the other was just a very average earner, but great parent. I would consider that second child to be more of a success than the first. And that isn't the way the world sees success. The world sees success is your bank balance and your career and everything else. Now, it's great. It's great to earn money. I mean, it's very useful for many things. And of course, you do need to be able to support your family. But if you don't have...
Well, I've seen a lot of my friends, I'm very lucky to have friends that are aged 40 to 80. My best friend is 80. And I've seen them as business owners, as soon as they have a kid, especially the males, it's like this laser focus happens where they're, not only their life does this, but their business does this.
Yeah.
Because now they're surrounded by a purpose. It's bigger than me. Do you see that happening as well?
Yeah, I think it actually helps too. Before I was married, I was useless. I did some really stupid things. I was lazy, I was arrogant, and as soon as I got married and we started having children, pretty quickly after that, I just had to work. I just had no concentration. And actually my business exactly did that. It went, got married and then from then onwards it was just a steady. Made a lot of bad mistakes along the way, but I never went back to what I was before because you've got a family to look after. You've got to be responsible. We find the same thing with franchisees, actually.
Okay.
One of the danger signs, young, single, no mortgage, no security, can be great, can have some great results, but they're very high risk. Married men, mortgages, they're much better.
What is it? Is it I'm backed against the corner and we're going to do whatever, or is it something else? What is it that...
I think it gives you a sense of stability, of purpose. And people are just different too. You know, men who are, there's a few things happen. When a man gets married, his testosterone levels drop. Gets away from that competitive sort of... High testosterone can be a danger sign in a whole lot of ways. So when a man is married, and especially when they have children and spend time with them, they're actually lower testosterone, they're more steady, they're more disciplined.
Yeah, right. Is that because they know they need to set the example, or?
Well, there's natural physiological changes. One of the things in this birthright book that I'm looking at is the actual physiology, the temperament behind fertility. And it's got to do with a certain kind of character. Like, okay, pick an extreme example. Let's take cocaine addiction, all right? Why does cocaine not make you happy, all right? You'd think it would, because it gives this great surge of pleasure, which is basically a dopamine surge. But the problem with that is that the brain becomes accustomed to it. And what it does is it dampens down these things called dopamine receptors, which actually are the things that recognize the dopamine. That's why you need more cocaine the second time and the third time and the fourth time. And eventually you need a whole lot of cocaine just to stay normal. And if you don't have it, it goes down. Life is boring, life is meaningless, like it's terrible. Now, That's actually the reverse of what happens when you become married, when you become a parent. Actually, the opposite happens. Your dopamine receptors seem to fire up. Exercise is the same thing, by the way, too.
Yeah.
And which means that you're a steadier, happier individual on the whole.
I can tell you, I wouldn't be sitting here right now today with the business that I'm building in a growth phase if it wasn't for my wife.
Yeah.
She's South African, married into a South African family, and she gives me a slap around when I need it. Right? Not a physical one, but a verbal, what are you doing sort of thing, or a little bit of a check-in here or there, or no, I think that's the wrong decision. Have you thought about this? You talked a little bit about arrogance, right? And as a business owner, you do have a level of, especially when things are going right, you have this level of, I can take on the world, but sometimes you need a partner to kind of bring you back down to earth, and that's what I'm lucky enough that my wife does.
That's good. How long are you married for?
2 years now.
Got any kids?
Not yet. I use the word yet. I'll be careful what I say recorded because I know the in-laws will be listening, so I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. But we've talked about it.
Yeah, well, don't delay too long. It's the best thing. I've got 10 children and
Wow.
nothing. My life has actually got a lot to do with purpose and meaning. And I've got three purposes in my life, basically. One is my research project, the one that I'm funding and the one that I've been working on for half a century.
Wow.
Another is my business, my franchisees, looking after them, making them successful. And third is my family.
I'd love to touch on all that. So you said 10 children.
10 children.
10 children. I watched a video last night of a guy. He was saying he said that exact thing. He said successful business people should have 10 to 20 children because we need more of those genetics.
20 children?
He said 20. I don't know if he was being facetious or as a joke, but he said 10 to 20. But so 10, I'll just focus on 10. How has that been? What's that brought to you?
That sounds a bit like eugenics to me. I don't know that a person successful in business is any more worthy to reproduce than anybody else, quite frankly. Because
I think 10's good.
There's some pretty big scumbags in business.
Yeah, true. Yeah, okay. I might have taken the video out of context.
Yeah. I know in France, in the early post-war period, when they were trying to encourage birth, they gave tax deductions. So you often had business with 10 or 12 children because it was so tax effective.
Oh my wow. Yeah.
That was a strange attitude.
That's fine.
I think there are certain people who probably shouldn't be parents. Like if you are drug addicted, for example, or completely incapable of looking after a child, abusive people like that who've been abusive parents already, they shouldn't be having children. But I think the great majority of people should have children. Yeah,
well, that was the point he was making. He said the wrong type of people have too many children, and the right type of people don't have enough.
Yeah. Okay. But I put that in behavioural terms, though, too.
Okay.
It's not so much that somebody's smart should have more kids. It's that somebody's got a good character, can look after children. Children need a certain they need a stable home to do the best. Yeah. Both parents sticking together, which is difficult in this day and age because divorce is so easy and so socially acceptable. And parents who can also put limits on children's behaviour, exercise love, but also exercise a degree of control. Of showing them there's a certain way to live. That's the kind of people we need. Now, whether they're successful in business or not, I don't care.
Yeah.
Some of the best parents, one of the most admirable people that I know of, I don't know him myself, was his best job was he was a tram conductor. But he was active in the local church, widely respected. And I knew two of his sons who were great guys. Now that man to me was an overwhelming success, despite the fact that materially speaking, he had nothing.
Yeah, so the success wasn't materialistic; it was more what he's actually guided his kids.
He had 6 children, all of them terrifically upstanding, great people. I don't know how. I know 1 or 2 of them actually did quite well financially, but that wasn't the point. They were good people.
Good people. So you've raised 10 children. You've also had success in your life. You've built a path. So do you show your kids the path to success, or do you more guide them along to their own level of success? How do you, I guess the question in there is, how do you raise a successful child?
Well,
And it means your definition of success is are they happy, are they healthy, right? But I guess the clickbaity question is, how do you raise a successful child?
You need to love your kids, but you also need to give them some level of direction and control in terms of establishing certain things. I mean, just an example, bad language, okay? Do not tolerate that in my children at any time. We had a system. Because I bite my nails, I had this stuff that you paint on your nails. We call it yucky mouth stuff.
Yep, we had it too.
One of the rules that was in with my children is if you said a bad word, you got it painted on your lips.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
It's equivalent to having your mouth washed out with soap.
Well, that's what we had. We had mouth washed out with soap and hot mustard.
Yeah. And I got to say, as far as I know, none of my children swear. Certainly not in my presence.
No.
Not even now. There was one time, actually, one of my sons said to me, you were having an argument with Mum, like 10, 15 years ago, and you said this word. And so I said, all right.
I'll do it myself.
I did it to him.
Yeah.
Never swore again. So I'm just using that as an example, and there's certain kinds of behaviour. But the other thing too is that people make the mistake. They do this helicopter parent, this micro managing, which I think is very bad for kids. Which means you control them, never letting them go up by themselves, never letting them have a free rein to always guide them against potential dangers.
Yeah.
Also, constant, tutoring and lessons and everything else, so that their life is organised, so they don't have much time for free play with children. I always believed you've got to let kids go. Like my youngest son, he thinks I was pretty mean actually, because I'm always pushing him. We go to a restaurant or somewhere like that, like a buffet.
Yeah.
And he wants some water. So I'd say, this is when he's 9 years old. And I say, okay, go and ask the bar. And he said, oh, no, I can't do that, Dad, because, it's too scary. What are they going to think of me? And I said, just, well, go to the bar. If you're thirsty, have a drink. So he keeps on pleading with me to help him out to get him a drink.
Yeah.
So eventually he gets up and goes and gets the water, which is not as scary as he thought. Or another time he was never been on public transport because he's driven everywhere. So he needs to learn that. So he was really nervous about it. So eventually I took him down to the station and I stood over him while he worked the machine.
Fantastic.
And after that, he could do things all by himself. So I pushed kids out. He's actually moved out at the moment. He's like just turned 16 and he's living with his sister.
Brilliant.
And her partner, because that's what he prefers to do. And
there's a sense of freedom.
They're a lot easier to get to places. It's a lot more. It's quite close to his school and stuff, so it's convenient for him. Now we're still in contact. I see him regularly and stuff. But the point of it is, you love your kids. You set very firm boundaries of behaviour. Like if Aaron doesn't do well in his maths, for example, he's in a lot of trouble. Or if he doesn't get his school homework done in time, which he can be a bit slack on, then certainly we let him know. So but at the same time, lots and lots of independence.
Yeah.
Make your own decisions, learn to get out there. So it's that combination. You've got to like having children. And that's one thing too. But I think if you bring up your children in the right kind of way, and I hope this is something, when you come to be a dad yourself, you'll do that too.
Absolutely.
You've got to let them free. One of the interesting things is about reading about Israel. Mm-hmm. Israel's a very interesting society. It's the only OECD country which has got above replacement level fertility. Because the replacement level is about 2.1. The average in OECD country about 1.6. We're about 1.5, 1.6 in Australia. Israel's 3.1. And they've got a very different attitude towards children. They actually let them have a lot more independence. Like they form these youth associations, what we call scouting groups, but they're led by the kids, and they walk to school by themselves, even quite young, and they run their school. Instead of having a teacher running the school plays, they do it themselves. And apparently the standard is not very good, but they do it themselves. So they actually give kids a lot. And Israel's an amazing society in terms of what's achieving.
It's that giving the kids the ability to go out and learn. Like I was speaking to a business owner friend of mine yesterday, and I've tried to do some filming with him at like 3 p.m. because of lighting and a whole bunch of reasons. But he's like, I pick up my kids from school, and I go, oh, hang on, how old are your kids? They're like, oh, high school. I asked him a question. I said, why you're a business owner, you're running a business, why are you picking up your kids? And his answer was quite interesting. He said, well, one, I guess we're spoiling them because we're picking them up. They don't have to catch public transport. But two, it means I get to spend some time with them. And then three, if they get home quicker, therefore they get to eat and they get to study a lot more. So they're in year 12. So those were his three reasons. But I said back to him, I said, some of the best memories I have of high school is catching the train home with friends. So it was this interesting dynamic. And I know Prashant, he'll be listening to this. So what are your thoughts on because obviously there's the go let them catch public transport and learn, but then there's, because he's a business owner, he can provide them that advantage, so to speak.
Well, we live a long way from the station, like an hour's walk from the station. So Aaron has occasionally, at his own choice, taken public transport to get home. It takes a long time. Usually I pick him up. Though I must say, in that particular situation, it did give me time to talk to him.
Yeah.
If I take him to school, it's quite a long drive actually. I'm spending several hours just talking to him about things.
Nice.
And there are rules too. If he takes out his phone and starts looking at it, I say, okay, Aaron, if you do that, I'm just confiscating for 24 hours.
Yeah.
So there is that situation. But at the same time, I do leave my kids a lot of independence in general. Yeah. Like even my second youngest child, the daughter, she actually moved out during year 12.
Right.
Which is not many parents would allow,
no.
But it just seemed, for her, it seemed a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
so I guess spending a lot of time, I just spend a lot of time with my kids. At the same time, I want to give them independence.
Yeah. Okay. So back onto the book, the No Other Success. You could write. You've got that much experience over your life and your business. You could write a book on anything. So why is it No Other Success that you've chosen to put your time and your energy and maybe some research, and why that?
Well, No Other Success is basically a business biography, but it's also including a lot of the stories of different people who've been successful in not only in business, but also more particularly in family. Like the actual story that I'd start with was of a guy I rang. One of the things I do is I ring franchises on anniversaries, like 10, 20, 30 years, and just ring and talk to them. And I was talking to this particular guy and about how he got into it, because he was previously he was it was a lot to his son. It's because of his son. He has a 4-year-old son. He was working very long hours as a manager of a supermarket. And so he'd leave very early in the morning, come back late at night.
Wow.
And one time when he was about to leave, very early in the morning, his 4-year-old son said to him, "Dad, I wish you could have breakfast with us." He said he drove to work, tears streaming down his face, that he wasn't seeing this little kid growing up. Quit his job, bought a mowing franchise. And ever since then, he's had breakfast with his kids every day. So I said, "Do you ever thank your son for that comment?" He said, "Every day I thank him for it."
Amazing.
Because it changed his life. Now, he's not actually making any more money. It's about the same, he said.
Yeah.
But the point of it is, the benefit in terms of seeing his kid grow up, who's now 14 years old, is just beyond anything that could reasonably be.
Well, I would argue that he is actually earning more money. It's just not monetary, it's time, and time's the only thing you don't get back. You don't get to watch your kid grow up.
We have a poor definition of success.
Yeah.
I think financial career success is one kind of success, and I don't personally think it's the most important. Look, I know a guy who's he's a pastor in my church, and this guy will never have much money. He just isn't going to be wealthy. But we were invited, my wife and I, to his birthday party, and his wife actually arranged for everybody there to talk about the way that Bill had blessed their lives. And you just hear this incredible outpouring from so many people of what this wonderful man had done, including for ourselves.
Mm.
He helped us to integrate, become part of the church and so forth, and establish relationships and stuff like that. But all the times he'd helped people and he'd guided them and influenced them. I mean, what an amazingly successful man. Now he might not wear a $1,000 suit or drive a fancy car or anything, but he's just a great guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and happiness and being able to be kind to people. And, you know, we've all had a bad day where we say something, we do something. And I think if you build an environment around yourself where you are happy when you wake up and you do have an amazing family, I think you're less prone to snapping at people. Right?
Well, the interesting thing about happiness too, it's one of the subjects I'm most interested in. I read a lot about happiness, and people have a very distorted idea how to achieve it. Most people think that if I just had, more money, better income, better car, bigger house, better holidays, I'd be happier. None of these things really have much to do with it. In fact, past about average Australian income, money has surprisingly little influence on how happy you are. But there are things that are definitely going to make you more happy. Being married is one, okay? Being active in a church community is another. But any form of community is good, but particularly religious communities are good. Doesn't matter which denomination or religion, of course. Being fit is good. Being exercising regularly is good. Having friends is good. Having positive attitudes towards life is good. That the one thing they've found that's most that you can do with happiness that has to do with money that has the biggest effect on happiness, give it away.
Right.
Actually, they found the worst thing to do with money is buy stuff, especially stuff that's all that status comparison.
Yeah.
Better is experience, but the best thing, give it away to a cause or something that you're involved in. That is the one best way to use money to achieve happiness.
Yeah, wow.
And it's not what people think. They have this notion, the more money I have. The trouble is people being focused on competition, comparing yourself with others is very, very much of a problem.
Yeah.
And that can be done in a lot of ways. That can be done with buying expensive stuff. And one of the interesting things they found, for example, people who win the lottery, when you first get it, they are really, really, really happy. But after 12 months, indistinguishable, no effect at all in terms of happiness. So comparing yourself to others is a bad thing. And that can be to do with buying stuff, but it can also have to do with things like social media, which is a great and rising cause of misery. When you're going out there, you're trying to get ticks, you're trying to get likes, that kind of stuff. That individualistic competition is misery making, and it's largely responsible, I believe, for a lot of the rising level of anxiety and depression and suicide amongst our young people.
Absolutely.
And we encourage that. We say, that's what you've got to do. You've got to be successful. You've got to be big. And that's why people want to be a YouTube influencer or something like that.
Yeah.
Used to be being an actor or something of that nature. But these prestigious sort of jobs, but they don't really work that way.
No.
And it's the same thing with occupations too. People are so focused on money and prestige, they think, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a banker, I'm going to be a tech wizard, I'm going to be something like that. Yeah. In actual fact, the happiest people in terms of professions tend to be people like gardeners and actually people who work physically, construction workers and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it. So I'm good friends with Dan Cahill now because you introduced us. Dan is also in your book. I called him on the way here. And I said, oh, well, what did you talk about? He's like, oh, it was a while ago. We talked about how families improved and and Dan's a great example of someone who's a young guy, came into your system via, he had training at McDonald's, came into your system, and now he's expanding, if I'm allowed to say it publicly, I'll cut it out if not, he's about to expand into America.
Well, he's looking at launching in Florida sometime late this year or early next year, which we're very excited about.
Yeah. So he's in the book. What's Dan's story for people who are listening and don't know about Dan?
High school dropout. Okay, he left school about 15, I think, so quite young as soon as he could, just hopeless. Had a number of jobs, mainly McDonald's. Did well there, got into certain kinds of positions, and then with great trepidation in his early 20s, decided to buy a mowing business, which, without any particular understanding or knowledge of what he was capable of or what he would come out of, and really not sure it was the right thing at all. And then built this phenomenally successful business. And the thing I noticed about Dan is not just the fact that he was turning over close to $1 million a year, but he had a 5.0 rating, despite having multiple teams working for him. So I thought, this guy is good. So then he approached me about buying into a regional franchise. And he didn't have the money for it. But I said to him, look, because I knew Dan, I knew what he was capable of, I said, I'll go halves with you.
Nice.
So we've actually formed a partnership, which has actually got like 150 franchises he's looking after now.
Incredible.
Done an amazing job. So
Incredible.
he's still in his early 30s. He's still a young bloke, and he's just getting started.
Yeah. And what has all this done? What have you seen him in terms of improvement in the family? So the financial success is there. That's great. And for people, if they want to learn more about Dan, I've interviewed him twice now. So his episode will be, I'll go and interview him again. He'll be after. So you go listen to Dan's story. But what have you seen in his family life, in his personal life, because of what he's been able to do?
Well, he's had 2 more children. In fact, he's got 2 sons whose middle names are actually David and James, which is named after me, which I'm very, very proud of.
That's beautiful.
And he said that's a direct influence,
direct
result.
I actually was in a toy shop and I sent Dan this message because you can get, because I knew he had the 2 kids, I sent him this and I put it up on the screen. So there's the merch I picked on what. And I said, start the kids early, and he goes, I might have to get him a set. So, do you think Dan will show his kids the business, or do you think he doesn't really mind? Like, because that is the thing. If you're a business owner, and you've built this thing, I joked with my dad before he passed away, and I said that he was a civil engineer. He designed the Rialto building. He was the lead engineer on Minehart. My mum worked for Grollo. And they met on the Rialto building project. So if that building wasn't there, I wouldn't exist. I now have an office there. But the point I'm trying to make is when I was talking to my dad, when he had his business, I was like, well, Dad, I'm never going to be a civil engineer. I'm a marketer, right? I love marketing. I love people. I was telling. He's like, yeah, okay. And I had long hair, and he called me a ponytailed hippie for going and doing marketing. And we joked about it. And I just said, well, Dad, like, apart from my brother, I'm not going to take over your business, right? Which obviously isn't going to happen now. But a lot of business owners, I don't know if they aspire for their kids to, like, what do you think about that? Like, take over the business, that kind of thing. Legacy, some people.
Well, it'd be nice if it happened, but with 10 children, I've got maybe 1 or 2 that might down the track. Currently, none of my kids are even working for me.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, look. It'd be good. I would love a family member to get involved in gyms with the right ethical nature, because I am concerned after I'm gone that my franchise be looked after. And I've set up a family trust which actually puts the control with my children, as well as giving a voice to my gyms people as well. Yeah. But I don't think it's the most important thing, really. Yeah. I think that the biggest thing I want from my kids is they be good people and good parents. And I've got a one of my sons who's actually he's pretty well retired now, because he's got enough savings and investments and so forth. But his last job was he's a programmer actually. He does a lot of stuff on the side, a lot of projects and things. But his last paid job was stacking shelves for Woolworths. Yeah. But he's a good guy, and he's a very devoted father of 2 children. So we just saw him with his kids on Wednesday night, which is to me that's success. I don't judge people. Yeah, I've got other children who will be very successful financially, but again, like my daughter is a psychiatrist, which is a pretty high level job. Yeah. With all those years of medical training. Absolutely. But she's also a really, really devoted mother. Yeah. To me, that's more special in a way. Yeah. If I had a choice, she really, really loves her little girl, and she was there on Wednesday night. We had a sort of family gathering. There were 3 of my kids there, and she's just a beautiful little kid, just very devoted, very happy, wonderful husband. It's not the money. Yeah, no, it isn't. It really isn't. What it is that trope though, especially the husband's working a busy job. They don't have to be CEOs, sweet business. They're working a busy job, so then the excuse is, oh well, I'm bringing the money in, so that's why I'm not there. Like I'm working late nights and doing that. That's a typical stereotype of that person.
Why does that happen, and what is the folly of that? Why is that? I'm so busy, I'm providing for the kid, maybe I'm bringing in 200, 300K a year, and I'm so busy, mum deals with it. What happens when that happens?
I think to a large extent it's an excuse because they find their job more gratifying than changing dirty nappies. I mean, seriously. It's how can anybody must realise that simply giving your kids more and more stuff isn't going to help them. In fact, one of the things I'm determined, no matter how wealthy I become, and I'm not as rich as people think I am, but we've never lived like that. My kids have this knowledge, this sort of understanding of in fact, we're pretty well off. But where's the mansions? Where's the yacht? Where's all this stuff that people are supposed to have, and the fancy cars and the rest? And they lived a very ordinary upbringing, very average, not poor, very comfortable middle. But they're all good with money. You see?
Wow.
They all saved money. They've all had jobs.
Yeah.
They're just ordinary kids. They understand the price of groceries.
Yep.
I give them a little bit of help with housing and stuff like that because these days it's so difficult otherwise.
Oh, absolutely.
But there's no.
I think most parents do that.
No trust fund kids. No. You need to these days, if you can possibly do it. There's no trust fund kids in my family because that's actually very dangerous. So a father who thinks he's doing the best for his kids by earning stacks of money is deluding himself. He's probably giving them too much, is weakening their character, and then when in the bit he sees them, he just showers them with. It's not a substitute for time. It's not. So look, I can't argue with people's choices. They do what they want to do.
Yeah.
But honestly, if somebody thinks that by earning a stack of money they're really doing the best thing for their kids, they're deluding themselves.
Yeah. Money is no substitute for time.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I just don't think it's worth it. It's an odd thing, people. Look, if I was pushing a lawnmower around, nobody would want to talk to me. I mean, seriously, would they? Because, it's this ordinary Joe. But the strange thing about it, people are interested in talking to me because I'm perceived as being successful financially. And yet I always said the same lesson. It's not the most important thing.
What is the most important thing?
Having a sense of purpose in your life, having some meaning in your life.
And what happens when you have those things aligned?
But that is the point of life. In a sense, you will be happier, but that isn't really one of the problems people have is that they search for happiness as if that's your main goal. Happiness isn't something that you aim for as a goal. Happiness is something that comes along when you live your life in coordination with good practice, when you live in the proper way. Like, you don't go to church to be happy. You go to church because you think that's the right thing to do, because you really want to live your life in the way that God wants you to live your life. Now, if you do that, then happiness tends to come. And the same thing with being a good partner, a good husband, a good wife, a good parent. It's something that you do because it's worthwhile doing in its own sake. Because when you start going for the short-term hit, the cocaine of the world, the hits from Facebook, the likes on Facebook,
the dodgy crypto thing because you get money,
or the prestige you get from running a successful business. People looking up to you and say, "Oh, you're so powerful, you're so." That kind of thing. I mean, that's pretty addictive stuff, but it's really negative.
Yeah,
it's really harmful.
Yeah. Why is it? Because it creates that emotion of I'm untouchable, and then you do stuff that's. Yeah.
Well, actually, I mean, you get stages in business where things are going well and you get a bit arrogant and you get a bit lazy and then you have a bit of a shock and it's often good for you. And then you say, okay, what am I doing? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing it this way? And then you change things around. And we need those kinds of... It's like when the Bible talks about hard times. It gives the analogy that, if you're a good father, then you love your kids and you're going to direct them, you're going to chastise them. Well, as Christians, we can see hard times as being exactly that kind of chastisement. It's God saying, hey, wake up.
Wake up.
Have some tough times. It's good for you sometimes to have tough times.
Absolutely. I've been on Joel's podcast talking about my manic depression. I've tracked it back. I'm 31. I've spent 5 years of my life in depressed periods. Five episodes, 12 months each. Although if it wasn't for those hard times, I wouldn't have learnt the lessons. I wouldn't know what true happiness feels like because I know what true sadness feels like. I wouldn't have the level of insights, knowledge and learnings into myself that a lot of people my age don't have. And I'm grateful for those hard times. I'm very open and willing to talk about it, because if it wasn't for those hard times, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't know what, when happiness comes, it's just this fleeting thing. But it's like, I can take the step back and go, well, yeah, this feels better. And that flip in the mindset of, because even when I'm in these states, I had money. I was comfortable, right? I wasn't destitute. I was very lucky, you know. And money wasn't the thing that made me happy. What made me happy was finding my purpose again, doing this again, you know. And so thank you for today. And I think that's really you're right now. You're helping me live out what I'm passionate about. So yeah.
What are the best times? Are the times when things go badly wrong, and you look at it and you say, okay, I'm learning something from that.
Yeah.
When I was my younger days, I used to when I got down, which I did much more than lately. I'm pretty happy overall in the last few decades, especially as my current wife, 23 years ago. But I would actually sort of lean into it. I would play very sad music, tragic music, and sort of feel okay. Do something that you don't try and cheer yourself up. You actually try and lean into it and say, okay, what is gone wrong? What is God trying to tell me about this experience? How can I do better? Get a renewed sense of purpose. And the best times come out of that.
Absolutely.
The best changes, because sometimes we need to be shaken up.
Yeah, well, a friend of mine, when I was going through the period, I put my music on in the car, and he just stopped it like 5 minutes in. He said, Tim, all your music is so sad. Why is it so sad? I'm like, I don't know. It's just the music. But it creates the environment, doesn't it?
I used to listen to a particular song, a music called Fantasia on the theme of Talus by Vaughan Williams.
Beautiful.
Very massed violins, very tragic music. That was my depression music.
Yeah.
And that was helpful.
So you said you're happier, so what music do you listen to now?
Actually, mostly I listen to talking books these days.
Good, yeah.
Most of my listening would be Christian music, I suppose.
Christian music, yeah.
A lot of I like psalms and things, and just Christian songs.
Yeah, great.
And it just happens that way. I like other stuff too.
Yeah.
I like Brahms and Aaron Copland and various kinds of modern songs and so forth, and different things.
Good stuff. Jim, I think that's a really good place to leave it. I've got one more question that I have, and then this time around I actually asked some friends in business and stuff if they had questions. So I've got an audio message from one of my friends that I'm just going to ask as a question from the audience, which is always good because it means that I'm not the only one asking the questions. But my last question is, what is a question you wish people would ask you about happiness and success?
What do I wish people would ask me?
Yeah. You've been doing a lot of podcasts. I've noticed it. What's the question you wish people would ask you about happiness and success, or just a question in general?
Well, people often just ask me how you can be happy and successful, more successful in my sense. So I think the questions I get asked are pretty fair, like the ones you've been asking today.
You. Yeah.
There's nothing people don't ask.
Yeah.
Even if they don't ask, I always tell them.
Good. You got to do that sometimes. Yeah, you do. All right. I will. So this is a question from a friend of mine, Johan. Johan was the reason I started my business. He pulled me aside one day and he said, Tim, I believe in you and you have an idea. So I've asked him if he could ask a question, and I'm just trying to do that. I'll just play it loud, and here we go.
Hey Tim, thanks for the opportunity. I think you interviewing Jim Penman is absolutely brilliant. He is a brilliant man who's achieved so much more than most people achieve in a lifetime. So what a great man to be interviewing. And my question to him would be, is there anything that cannot be franchised? Because from the way I've seen the way he builds businesses, everything can be franchised. It's pretty epic. So well done, Mr. Jim. And I'd love to know. Thanks, man.
So the question was, if the audio doesn't come through, is there anything that can't be franchised? We've got Jim's mowing, we've got Jim's dog cleaning, we've got Jim's antennas, we've got Jim's everything. But there are certain things that you haven't franchised. So is there anything that can't be?
I don't know whether they can't be franchised, but there's certain things that we wouldn't franchise, like insurance, for example. We have an insurance service. I don't think there's any particular benefit. Franchising in our kind of model works well when you need that local presence, and it works very well for services in general. And also when you've got retail stores and that sort of thing, not that we're into retail, but if you've got a service that can be run electronically from anywhere, like search engines or a lot of IT stuff, there's really no benefit in franchising. So we actually... we're actually, one of the things we're starting right now is the thing called Jim's Healthy, where we're actually getting really healthy food made, that's a passion of mine, which is not only got at least a 4.5 star rating, but it's also got at least 2.5 serves of vegetables in every meal. And you can't buy really healthy food in the supermarket.
No.
Unless you actually make it yourself, and I'm a lousy cook. So we're actually launching that, and that's about to start. Now, the thing about that is there's no benefit to franchising it because it can be ordered centrally. We've got a place in that's actually does these kind of things, and we'll distribute it.
Yeah. So it's more of a business that's not a franchising business.
Yeah, there's no benefit to franchising that kind of business, and so there's many things that I wouldn't franchise at all.
Yeah, and would you say, because a lot of it is services that you do, so services that, particularly what I've noticed is they go to the home as well. So it's they're not coming to a central location. Is there a reason for that?
Well, that's what we're good at.
Yeah.
We see, one of the hardest lessons in life is to learn what you're good at and not stray too far beyond it. Now, I've tried lots and lots and lots of different kinds of businesses. They've all had one thing in common, apart from my service business, they've all lost money.
Right.
Trade exchange, a factory for making fiberglass trailers, a psychology institute, which I got involved with, lots of different things, tourist venture, lost money on everything because I didn't really understand what I was doing.
Yeah.
So the thing about service industry is that I understand it very well. It might seem that things like mowing and cleaning and dog wash and antennas are very different, but they're all very, very comparable in terms of their structure, the way you find work, the way you approach it, the whole thing. So we're good at that. So what we aim to do is to become better and better at that particular specialization. And we're really very narrowly specialized, but I don't get into site-based franchising.
Okay.
Least of all anything like fast food, which is a totally different area.
Yeah.
A lot of things we don't do. Stick to what you know and get better and better at that.
What about teaching, like music teaching or singing, or what about those ones?
Oh, we'd love to do tutoring.
Yeah.
Tutoring is definitely one we go for. Most divisions start with us because we find somebody who's the right person to start it. It's the person who heads the division that's important, because the way that Jim's works is we have generalised knowledge about franchising in general and services and all computers and all kinds of things, contracts, but we're not specifically understanding how you do antennas or all those kind of things too. So you find people to drive the division who've got that background.
So I've heard,
tutoring we'd love to do, yes.
Yeah, and I've actually heard you say on other shows and stuff that Joel produces is you love it when people come to you with ideas. You're like, hey, I want to start a Jim's singing school, or I want to start even the purple branded removalist, which I believe one of your children,
my daughter's,
your daughter's doing, right? So even these ideas, people come to you with the idea. So you're actually open to listening if it's a good idea, right?
Yeah. Well, I probably get hit with an idea for a new division once a week.
Once a week?
Yeah, we might actually launch one once a quarter. It's a long process because you've got to look at all kinds of things. First of all, is it a feasible division for us? Has it got a big enough market? Can a average franchisee make at least $70 an hour? That's kind of your basics. So first of all, is it feasible? Doesn't conflict with any other division, which is important too, because the territory rights in Jim's. Yep. Then you look at the person driving it. What's their background? What have they done? Right. Do they have a background in the industry? Or contrary, have they got the right kind of character and attitude? Like, just as an example, one of our mowing franchises in South Australia, a guy called Lance, has recently launched Jim's driving school, which is going very well. We had 8 in the last training.
Amazing.
Now, the thing about that is Lance is a very good operator. He's a very good franchisee. Not only makes good money, but he's also got great customer service. And he's also been involved in training and supporting people. So he's a great candidate. So the right kind of division, the right candidate. And even with that, we don't push them hard.
No.
So people who come up and they're interested, we say, okay, here's your next step, follow it up.
Yeah, go for it.
We don't hard sell.
Yeah.
Come along to the divisional conferences and learn about it. Talk to any people you like. Come to training, no obligation. Just learn all you like. Be really certain it's what you want to do.
Awesome. And the last phone a friend question, someone asked me, if you're looking to franchise a business, how do you actually sell, and you've got a good established business, how do you go about selling that first franchise?
Well, you probably don't sell it. You probably give it away.
Why? Yeah, really, why?
Because what you've got to have is success. So when you start a new division, you might have somebody who's ready to go, because often people who do this have contacts already, but quite likely you don't. So you just say to somebody that you know, okay, have a go, do it. And then what you do is you look after them really well and make them successful. And then the next person you say, well, go and talk to Bill. So they ring up Bill, what's it like? Yeah, terrific. I'm making, $3,000 a week and it's terrific. I've got great support and stuff. Why don't you come out with me on the road?
Yeah.
All right. So you do that, and then you get Ben, or you get Julie, and then she does well.
Yeah.
So then you've got a group of people who are actually doing very, very well, and that's easy to sell more. That's the principle that we've always worked on. The best way you can sell a franchise is not to sell it at all. You grant it to somebody you're pretty certain of, but it's the fact that you're successful franchisees, your own franchisees. List of current franchisees should be your best sales tool. Absolutely. Somebody says to you, should I do this or not? I say, I tell you what, here's a list of my current franchisees with their phone numbers. You go out and ring as many as you can.
Awesome.
Spend some time out in the road with them.
Yeah.
And people say, oh, you can't make this kind of money. This is a common story. Nobody can make $4,000 a week, cleaning houses. And you say, okay, well, go out with so-and-so.
Yeah.
And then count what they're making. And have a look at what they're doing, and then you'll see for yourself.
Yeah, fantastic. Your best salespeople are the people doing it, and your net promoter score 10s, or the ones that are loving it, and they're your best salespeople.
A lot of our sales these days come from people who know somebody in it. Yeah. Often it's a husband and wife. We're pretty sneaky. When we give a person we put a person down for franchise training, we actually let them bring their partner without cost. Because it's extremely common.
You got to get a buy-in. You got to get a buy-in from
Kimmy Stroman said that the husband buys a mowing business and the wife buys dog wash or cleaning or something like that. It's extremely common these days.
Yeah.
Or it's friends, or it's brothers, or it's all kinds of things. One person's successful and they bring others in.
Yeah, great. Jim, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for giving me the time for the third time. And I've always thoroughly enjoyed our chats. Thank you for letting me live my passion today. And I've been Tim, you've been Jim, we've been talking. Thank you for being the expert that shared your blueprint.
It's always a pleasure. And next time I talk to you, I hope we'll have a kid on the way.
There we go. Actually, I won't book in another time with you until we do that. How about that?
Good man.
There we go. Thank you.